How's it going? My name is Pete Styles, and what you're currently looking at is my school photo of when I was probably around 10 years old. And as you can see, I was raised in an extremely multicultural environment. It's only until I hit around like 15 years old that I would say that I went outside of London, and then that's when I met a bunch of white people that just wanted to touch my hair, mainly because they'd never seen a black person before. So that was the moment I realized that not everybody is raised into multiple cultures, and that was also the moment that I realized that not everyone's seen a black person before. So the next guy which I'm about to highlight, his name is Tim White. He's either usually speaking about white privilege or systemic racism. And there's a guy in the audience which asked him how is he able to address a situation like that if he can hardly see himself.
So first is you have to really sort of train yourself to see things, because the truth is the culture trains you not to. Makes it very hard for us to see injustice, because to see injustice is to acknowledge that we're not who we think we are as a society, and that's painful for some people to recognize, especially when they've had the luxury of believing that we were that place. People of color sort of known.
Oh, we know. This is Jane Elliott. She is a diversity trainer, and she has an exercise called Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes. This is a clip of an outcome of one of her sessions.
I'm 63 years old, and I've seen England change so much. You know, for me, it's so difficult because all of a sudden, you know, we've got this multiracial society. It wasn't there when I was a kid, when I was a teenager even. And my kids accept it. They're amazing. I'm the one that genuinely has a great difficulty with it, but I'm learning.
Thank you, Jesus. Then you got some kids of the older generation which feel that they do not need to change, with kids like this.
I literally hate my family so much. It's just, they just try to argue with me that George Floyd they're just trying to tell me that like he deserved that because he did something wrong and that it was okay. That is not okay.
Belt of truth! Jesus Christ!
Moving on. So I'm going to pass this one over to Trevor Noah, and I can totally relate to this subject, mainly because some of the conversations that I've had with my American friends out there. The question that's asked to him is, what would be one of the things that he would bring over from South Africa over to the USA if he had the choice?
What would it be? I think it would be maybe our general ease at talking about race and our racial past, you know? Because South Africa and America have very similar histories, you know, in that there were many things that were done to people of color that were extremely heinous, but we just maybe because of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in our country, we were forced to talk about it, and we just talk about it. It's painful, but we laugh about it, and it's out there. Whereas in America, I find there's like a lot of tension in and around that. A lot of people are just like, yeah, well, come on, we don't have do we have to bring that up? It helps to be able to have conversations about those things, because then it helps you understand how you got to where you got to. But if you can't have those conversations, then you just have to operate in a blind space of like, how did this happen? You know, why do so many black people live in this part of Harlem?
The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. Decades after the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny black people loans and other services based purely on race.
Truth is, that was just one example. And this next clip, I'm just going to let it speak for itself.
We go from slavery, we move into Jim Crow. We have this moment of Reconstruction, which I can look at as the Obama years was that little moment of neo-Reconstructionism. And then you have the oppression that follows suit. You have the white anger and the white rage that follows suit. How dare these black people, you know, see themselves as fully functioning people?
And a perfect example of this rage took place in 1921 at Black Wall Street. It was one of the most affluent African American communities in the whole of America until a group of people decided that it was not going to exist anymore. If you don't know about this story, please look it up for yourselves. And let's not forget about the famous tweet that got Colin Kaepernick in so much trouble. The badge that you're looking to the left is one of the slave patrols, and slave patrol began in South Carolina in 1704. This was one of the first forms of policing in America, and I personally think this is something to at least be aware of. Last but not least, The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. If If you're black, I will definitely tell you to do your research on this one, mainly because it affects us in our community still today worldwide. I'm not going to go too much into it, though his speech was delivered in 1712 and is said to last for around 300 years, and personally, I think the curse is being lifted, and that's exactly what we're experiencing today. If you'd like to get more insight into these topics, you can head over to Netflix and pull these up. Well, I hope this gave you a bit more insight, regardless of what side of the fence you sit on. Until soon, Pete.